warming up. We're still doing okay. Nobody's starving yet. And we're going to talk a little bit about culture. We've condensed this presentation a lot of bit, frankly, and it's going to end up being a segue primarily to our guest CEO. But I was going to start with an exercise, and I thought about we're going to close our eyes and lean back and envision something. I realized, as business owners and executives, I'd probably open my eyes and be the only one or two people standing here. So we'll do it a little different because I think Nicole and Lauren really did an excellent job talking about culture, or actually Michael who had to leave. And a lot of great questions came up. We talked a little bit about compliance and how we address that. But imagine a culture or a company, let's remove the word culture for a second, that had self-managed employees, right? Who expenses went down because they made those decisions, whose performance continued to grow outside of specific, clearly defined direction, if you would. Or imagine a company that didn't require micromanagement, which sometimes feel like that's where it needs to go, right? Culture matters, and it's sort of been a buzzword in the past, but what ends up happening is it really has never been more important. But let's touch on it a little bit. So what does the Netflix stock chart have anything to do with culture, and why is it up there? Well, for one, I'm a wealth management firm, and I just couldn't help myself. But two, Netflix CEO at the time, Reed Hastings, put out, and he got together with his leadership team, and he says, I don't think we've clearly defined who we are, what's happening, right? They're right in the middle of Silicon Valley, competitive environment, small up-and-coming company, right? Their competition is who? Google, Amazon, the biggest of the best. Michael talked about, well, I can't pay $25 to wave a flag. Imagine, $250,000 for programmers and cool offices and giant suites. How do you compete? How could I even possibly get this thing going? He put out a document with his leadership team that Sheryl Sandberg, who's now the COO for Facebook, talking about with Bernie, said it's arguably the most important document that's ever come out of Silicon Valley, right? Clearly believed it had tremendous impact. And it was basically their core value statement. It was their culture. That slide deck, if you would, that was put out in 2009 was released publicly in 2011. And since, I see numbers all over the place, so I'm going to stick with the more conservative numbers, more than 8 million views. So why would a culture deck for a company have more than 8 million views? Why would it? Give me some ideas. Why do you think it would have so much interest? What's that?
Maybe because people just don't have culture,
They don't have culture. What I think is a super good point, and we'll elaborate on that, it's almost intangible at times for most companies. I previously worked for a Fortune 50 company. We had culture. Our executive team talked about it all the time, right? We had core values. I saw them, in the lobby. I could find them on documents if I tried hard enough, right? But did our people exude those core values? Probably more importantly, did the leadership live those core values? So many companies have nice sounding value statements displayed in the lobbies. Anybody remember Enron? Right? This was the core values etched on massive pieces of granite in the lobby. Integrity, communication, respect, and excellence. You think there's any potential conflict in terms of those core values with the company? Right? And everybody knows what happens next. And my teaser part to our CEO introduction is this, right? While it's critically important, don't put some words on a piece of paper and say, these are our core values and check the box. It's substantially more than that, right? And as the leaderships of your organization, you have to think through. We would encourage you to pull those, your leadership group together and go through some exercises. I'm going to talk just briefly about it. But what you don't want to do is check the box. the other thing is you're going to have to live those core values, right? Frankly, if you're not living those core values, you're better off not posting them, right? Because a hypocrite is not anything that anybody wants to follow. But the part that, and that probably seems pretty obvious. The part that's less obvious, though, is how you react, right? You've all heard the old saying, you know, actions speak louder than words. So what happens when we have an underperforming employee, right? But how many times have we seen, well, he's been around a long time, they're doing a good job, we don't have time to hire a recruit. How do you think that impacts the rest of the organization? Everyone notices it, right? If you have posted a core value, high performance, which is one of the ones that Netflix puts up, yet there's B, C, D performers evident everywhere. What do you think A performers want to do? They're gone. They're going to Google. And what's interesting is, and I'm going to use Netflix to stay consistent, Netflix says, you know, a lot of small businesses especially become kind of a family-oriented type thing, right? They see a coherent conflict. Why? Why would you think that could be a potential downside?
Can't fire your brother.
That's 100% correct, right?
Why not be angry at me?
So why not? Well, see, John would tell you a thing or two about that. My guess is Ray would as well. So, but they want, that doesn't mean you can't be tight. That doesn't mean you can't be a little bit, you know, close and have friendships and things of that nature. But Netflix likens it to a professional football team or athletic club, right? Sometimes that's good, sometimes it's bad, but top performers stay, right? People that fit the culture stay. Not a huge New England Patriot fan. I'm ecstatic that they lost the Super Bowl. But it's hard to deny Belichick's ability to not only drive systems and processes and things of that nature, but the culture there is that of winning, right? It's not come here, and if you're a superhero, you know, we're going to pay you a lot of money, and when you don't feel like playing, let us know and have an attitude and sit on the bench. How long do you think that player lasts on Belichick's team? Not long, right? He really doesn't care who you are or what your compensation is. As a matter of fact, if the greater need of the team is in other places, right? Blunt was playing for the opposing team in this Super Bowl for Philadelphia. Why? Because they came to him and said, based on the needs of the team, we have to ask you to take a pay cut. He said, I'm not willing to do that. And they said, okay, we understand. See you later. Right? Go play for Philadelphia, which won a Super Bowl. So that worked out for him. But my point is, it wasn't a negotiation. But what's ironic, some of the top players in the world end up in the New England Patriots for less money than they were playing for their previous team. Right? So if you follow the sports world, that's sort of an anomaly. But it goes back to culture, and it's critically important. I think a lot of business owners, I'm guilty myself previously, and I see it every day, they sort of check culture off as, well, that's a cool thing, it's nice, I want people to be happy, right? That's sort of how it ends up coming up. But what I'm going to tell you, it will drive valuations, it will drive decision-making process, it can become a competitive advantage, right? It can improve recruiting. Well, how do you do that? You know, not to get too much into it, but I have a small wealth management firm. We are a part of the second largest independent broker-dealer in the country. We finished number 1 and number 7 in growth to, you know, 1 ironically was easier than finishing number 7. As you get bigger, it gets more difficult. But we've spent no money on recruiting. We've ran no ad. We've done no recruiting events. Yet we have a pipeline now that our recruiting firms are going to us. The headhunters of the firms are saying, well, I don't understand how you're getting your pipeline. Honest to goodness, we really haven't tried to create a pipeline yet. What we've spent time on is trying to create a culture, right? Hiring advisors that want to do the right thing, that are client-centric, that are passionate about serving their clients, families, and communities, and really focused on it. If people weren't a fit, we had to let them go. And the interesting part about it, and probably sort of the stamp on that lesson, for me, that I said we're never looking back after this. So we hired, we desperately need some help. We had a health issue from, I called her my everything girl. I mean, she was as smart as a whip. Both parents were doctors, and she says, I want to be in your business. God bless you. So she had some health issues without getting into a lot of detail, and we needed some people, and we needed them quick. And so I just went to my competitors, Schwab, Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley. It's somebody that's got somebody who's been around a long time. Whatever way I need to pay, it's probably going to be worth it, which wasn't our ideal. And we found a lady, clearly won't use her name, but 11 years experience, 9 years with Schwab, highly licensed and credentialed, literally 3 years with a firm 5 times bigger than my own. That's perfect, right? Comes in, knew the language. I mean, she's teaching me things on NetX Pro and ACAT and doing some of these stuff, which is internal type things. Outstanding competency. Probably 6 or 7 months into it, bump here, bump there, and 5 o'clock, man. You could look out there, 4:55, that desk is getting cleaned up. At 4:59, 5, the door slams. She is on it. She's out of there, right? And we had some issues. We'll get into it. So our operations manager said, how do you want to handle this? Let's put her on a PIP, performance enhancement plan, or performance improvement plan, or 90-day productivity plan. Let's go ahead and do this. Okay, yeah, that's a great idea, because that's what we learned. Both of us came from the same Fortune 50 company. That's how we're told to do it. You document it, you go through all of this stuff. Here's where you're at. So I think dreading this meeting, because frankly, she thought she was the greatest thing since sliced bread. So to put her on a performer, I knew it was going to be kickback. I knew it was going to be dramatic. Dreading this big, long meeting. I called Amanda, who's my ops manager, day before our meeting. I said, Amanda, can I ask you a question? She said, yeah. I said, do you think this plan we've put together, 30, a 60, and 90-day plan, is genuinely going to change her actions, her behaviors? Because performance, frankly, wasn't the issue. She said, not even a half a second. No, I don't. I said, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? She's like, well, frankly, because you told me to. That's what she said. I said, but realistically, do you? She says, I don't. I said, then we're terminating her. She goes, how are we going to do that? I'm like, what do you mean, how do we do that? I said, we're just going to say this is no longer a great fit. And if she wants examples, I've got plenty, right? So we go in there, we terminate her exactly as I described. By the way, I was petrified, just so you know. We needed the talent. We terminated her. She leaves. I didn't have one employee not come to us and thank us, including the person that brought her to the firm, who's personal friends with her, still is to this day, and the person that I thought was going to go with her because I fired her, because they had become such good friends. They all thanked us. Said, we really like her as a person. We think she does a good job. She doesn't fit our culture. We hired a gentleman shortly thereafter and says, what is our cult, right? We knew intuitively we wanted people with the same core values and things, but we really haven't publicly announced them. We get together, we hire a consultant, we put together some core values, and the firm's never been the same since. And, it's very difficult to hold a company hostage when they know you have this type of culture. Here's the things that are important to us as a team, right? It's very difficult to pick on management or even get sued, frankly, when in meetings they're addressing performance issues. You're not even present. Maybe a membership team or somebody is. It makes a tremendous difference. Vendor relationships, customer retention, they see that, right? People want genuine, sincere people. And ultimately, if you post values and you're conflicting, people are running from it. But if you're consistent with it, people come to it. The best part about that, it's not just any client. Typically, it's clients that meet your criteria as well. It's not just about, I need a lot of people. Come on, I need people. right? It's people that match your core values. Do you think that would be better to work with those people regardless of your business? Or, would that be more productive? People hang with other people just like them, so you sort of create this ripple effect, in essence, where you're attracting more of those like-kind people. Tremendous. Boost acquisition success. I don't know if your business is in acquisitions mode or whatnot, but for us, we are acquiring individual advisor books in small firms as we try to scale. The interesting part about that was trying to acquire firms with your similar culture, or culture that wasn't so conflicting that it didn't create mad chaos. Ironically, our first acquisition came after our clearly defined culture experience, and we said no, which I cried for about 3 days. It was beautiful, but culture clash. They were right. At the end of the day, we would have spent more time trying to convert this whole deal, lost revenue, clients not a culture match, et cetera, than we would have had we put that deal together. The interesting part, we do a thing I'm going to talk just briefly about on vision and sharing our core values, but we also obviously talk about targets and performance and 3-year goals and objectives. One of our goals in our 3-year objectives is become the chosen acquirer. I'm like, what does that mean, right? We want to be the firm, in essence, that companies and advisors seek to buy their business. Why? Because they know what our intent is on how we're going to take care of the clients that they have. We want them to say the price is going to be fair, because I hope I'm never the top bid. I don't even want to be in the top 50%, I don't think. But we want to be fair to them, their family, and the transition. We want to be flexible. We want to deliver to those clients. And what ends up happening, you'll find in our business, right, and every business is unique, you get a good advisor who's worked with clients for 30 years, they care who they sell it to. I'm not turning those people over to anybody. The guy we're talking to now said, I've had 6 offers, you're the lowest. What are we going to do about that? I said, you tell me. What are we going to do? It took him 3 or 4 months. I come up a little bit and we're not done yet, but he's told me point blank, 74 years old, I've worked with these people for 35 years. I can't see him working with these other firms. I'd like him to work with you. I'm like, excellent, sign here. No, we're not quite there yet. But that's an example of, and we're seeing it, right? We're learning this as we go. We're in the same sort of stages that some of you guys are, right? We're still stage 2 and up and coming. But real world is like, oh. And when you have an awareness of what your culture is, and you've stated what your culture is, and then you begin to tell the world, we're unofficially still shy about it, right? Because I've noticed it's evolving a little bit. And that's okay. It will. So how do we do it, right? I'm not a traction implementer or certified traction coach. I'm none of those, but I'm a traction believer, right? I'm a faith-based guy, but this is kind of like the business Bible for me, right? In fact, our friend and guest CEO today was the one that introduced it to me several years ago, and I've sort of been like addicted. It's kind of been a borderline obsession. But that process that it teaches you, and I put the book up here today because frankly, I've been to a lot of presentations, you hear a lot of people speak, I love to read, I go through all this stuff, but the complexity of everything, right? Like today's like drinking from a fire hose. You got so many things that you're talking about and what you're trying to learn and where you're at that you just kind of go like this. I can over-engineer anything. My education's electrical engineering. I jokingly say I'm a recovering left brain analytic. I used to over-engineer everything. This, to me, was streamlined and simple. So I put it up there because I encourage all of you to go read the book. In fact, the next one's Get a Grip, the next one's Rocket Fuel, and the new one's What the Heck is EOS? All tremendous. I'm not endorsing an implementer, but I think most of us are not good self-implementers. My personal role, if you read Rocket Fuel, is the visionary, and I was also our integrator, which was disastrous, right? So bringing somebody in can really help. But I wanted to spend a second on this because this is in their book. They're going to preach it. I don't care which implementer you ever hire, they're going to talk about it. And I won't go through all of it, but if you look at your 2-day vision process, number 1 up there, core values, core focus. Again, previous firm, we did this too. But it's painful, it's a little bit raw, it kind of gets almost, you definitely need some water breaks in between these sessions because they can get really intense, but when you come out, it's real, right? It's your core values, and I wanted to stress that. And I'm going to wrap up literally by saying something we've really already said. As leaders, your culture's up to you. You will set the tone, right? So if the values on your wall are in conflict with your core values, take them down, right? That will be seen as disingenuous extremely quick, and you'll run people out as quick as you can get them in.